Welcome to Hazard Communication Training for the landscaping personnel of Dallas Baptist University. Let's begin by offering a definition of the term hazard. For our training purposes, hazard may be defined as an immediate danger or risk to an employee's health, the health of others, or to the environment. This training is designed to communicate the most likely hazards a landscaping employee may encounter while working at DBU and relate important information in order to work more safely and effectively. In this session, we will identify and discuss general safety hazards, personal protective equipment, chemical hazards, and biological hazards that could directly affect an employee's safety and health. So what do we mean by a general safety mindset? This applies to your alertness and how you go about the daily work routine, being cognizant of your safety and those around you, and working smart throughout each day to not only be productive, but working safely as well. One of the most common accidents of workers are trips and falls. When in the shop area, pay close attention to wet floors or debris which may be blocking walkways when securing equipment, and remember to keep balanced with your feet securely on the ground when working. It is especially important to keep a wider stance when standing or walking on the DBU steep slopes. A wider stance while working is critical, especially when treating and removing ice during inclement weather. Take care to get a good footing and balance yourself as well as possible. In prevention of slips and falls, it is also necessary to have good traction with your boots. If you feel your boot treads are wearing down too much, it may be time for us to provide you with new footwear. Boots with slick soles should not be worn while working on the campus landscaping. Other components of general safety mindset include: do not try to lift more than you are capable. It's better to double team a load with a partner than to strain a muscle or fall. Do not horseplay while on the job. When on the clock, it is time to focus on the work at hand and save horseplay for another time. Do not wear earphones with music unless given permission. Wearing earphones can greatly affect your awareness of what's going on around you and cause a safety hazard to yourself or others. Be attentive to others in close proximity to where you are working. This is especially true when using heavy equipment or weed eating and blowing, as you may inadvertently cause someone else's safety to be compromised. If you are unsure how to perform a task safely, ask your supervisor. Now let's discuss personal protective equipment. For our purposes, PPE can be defined as any materials to protect your body from landscaping, environmental factors in which engaged, and they include protective glasses, which should always be worn to protect the eyes from flying debris and the sun, hats, which provide protection from the sun and prevent loss of body heat when working in low temperatures, boots, which of course protect the feet and retain body heat in inclement weather, long pants, which protect the legs from flying particles, chemical drift, and from the sun. Gloves are very important when handling sharp or rough objects and prevents exposure of hands to cuts and low temperatures in inclement weather. Ear protection. This is referring to plugs for decibel protection of the eardrums, or muffs can also protect ears from low temperatures. Long sleeve shirts, which can protect the arms from chemical applications, from the sun's rays, and flying debris when trimming. Sunscreen, which is very important in summer, to apply generously on exposed areas daily for sun protection. Breathing masks or apparatuses, which can limit allergen intake into nasal cavity or should be used in appropriate chemical applications. Knee pads should be used when working on pavement in various grounds applications. Coats or thermals, which of course provide protection from the elements in rain or inclement weather conditions. Now let's discuss chemical hazards in which landscaping personnel could be exposed. These hazards could have a direct effect on an employee's health if not handled with care. Environmental concerns also arise if chemicals are not applied or disposed of properly. Gasoline is by far the most flammable and most dangerous chemical used by landscaping personnel. Special care and consideration must be given to gasoline because of its combustible nature. It must be stored overnight in vapor-proof containers in designated non-flammable cabinets. When using the gas pump, personnel should be aware of the safety shutoff and the SPCC plan in case of a spill. Engines should always be shut off when fueling equipment when gasoline hose is in use. Always avoid any activity which could produce sparks around gasoline vapor. Diesel fuel is not nearly as flammable as gasoline, but still must be handled with care, and be aware of the emergency shutoff button and SPCC plan in the event of a spill. Corrosives are sometimes used in landscaping maintenance, and the most common used is masonry acid or muriatic acid, and also bleach. These are used to clean masonry, plaques, and water scale, as well as algae in fountains. They must be stored in the paint locker, which has a containment reservoir in case of spills and is kept locked most of the time. Remember, these chemicals should always be applied with proper PPE, and disposal of excess corrosives and the empty containers with residue are highly regulated and must follow the proper waste stream as designated by Rex Hudson, the Environmental Safety Manager. Other chemical hazards are pesticides. All pesticides are highly regulated and are only used by licensed personnel on campus or employees working strictly under their direction. These chemicals must be stored in the pesticide locker, which has proper spill containment and is kept locked most of the time. Proper PPE must be worn when applying pesticides, as is stated in the MSDS and general handling procedures of the label. A final hazard to discuss are oil-based paints and thinners. All of these paints, with the exception of aerosol spray cans, are stored in the paint locker as designated by the Environmental Safety Manager. This locker has the appropriate spill containment in the event of significant spillage. Proper PPE must be worn when applying these chemicals as indicated by the MSDS provided with the product. Now let's discuss biological hazards in which landscaping personnel could be exposed. So allergens from fungus and pollen or plant residue tend to be the most common biological hazards for grounds personnel. Proper PPE such as dust or pollen masks, gloves, and medicated ointment may be used to help prevent allergic reactions. Ask your supervisors for special PPE if you have these specific needs. Another biohazard to consider is sewage. There are infrequent but possible occasions grounds workers could be exposed to raw sewage in the event of a major sewer main break or backup. Typically, these exposures have to do with cleanup and power washing sewer debris to storm drains. When handling raw sewage, it is important to remember that in the right circumstances, severe health risks are present. Raw sewage is a source of harmful microorganisms, including bacteria, viruses, and parasites. These organisms could enter the body through cuts, your mouth, or eyes. Because of these organisms, exposure to sewage may result in a number of illnesses, including gastroenteritis, Weil's disease, hepatitis, and infection of the skin or eyes. So be cautious and aware when dealing with raw sewage. Wear appropriate PPE. Pay close attention to splatter of debris. Be aware of hands to face or to mouth and eye contact. Wash your hands, face, and any exposed area with bacterial soap as soon as possible. Another rare exposure while working on the grounds of the university is blood-borne pathogens. These have the potential, however, to be devastating to health if not guarded against. A separate intensive blood-borne pathogen training is mandatory for all DBU personnel. This training is offered once per annum and is designed to inform employees about the dangers of blood exposure. Proper PPE and disposal of cleanup materials to prevent the possible spread of disease. It is important for you as landscape personnel to be aware of this hazard and comply with safety practices if exposure occurs. As we come to the end of this training, let's review what we've discussed. This training centered on communication of the most likely hazards a landscape employee may encounter while working at DBU and related important information in order to work more safely and effectively. In this session, we identified and discussed what it means to have a general safety mindset, the importance of personal protective equipment, and the recognition of chemical hazards, and awareness and prevention of biological hazards that could directly affect an employee's safety and health. This concludes this part of the lesson module for hazard communication. Now go on to the other lesson materials and practice quiz and final exam.